Middle Tennessee is known for a rich cultural heritage, particularly in the music and the arts. One of the key cities in the area is Murfreesboro, which has earned its nickname Bucket City. Murfreesboro is home of Middle Tennessee State University, which plays a pivotal role in fostering artistic talent and promoting music education. Bucket City Mouthwash is a podcast that focuses on the artistic community in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and the broader Middle Tennessee region. The podcast serves as a platform to highlight the stories and projects of local artists, providing them with an opportunity to share their experiences, insights, and creative endeavors.
Alright, so Ethan, let's do a little backstory, and then kind of like we did last time, and then we'll do a little bit of choose your adventure as we go.
I have very little memory of all the stuff we covered last time, so
Sweet.
Honestly wish I had listened to it to prepare for a second part, but
Okay, cool. So, can you tell me about you and Jack coming here from Paducah, right?
Yeah, I tell everyone Paducah because it's like the closest city that people would actually recognize. We came from Mayfield, which is about 30 miles south of Paducah, famously where it was recently destroyed by a tornado a couple, 4 years ago or something like that. Maybe a little more, honestly. But yeah, we came from Mayfield in Graves County, Western Kentucky. Paducah was where the closest place that had like some form of punk scene, I guess you would call it, going on. I mean, we actually did shows in Mayfield too, but it was just a bunch of high school kids, you know. It wasn't like a scene with like multi-generational people hanging out and multi-generations of bands and stuff, like what would constitute a proper scene, you know, or a formal scene. But yeah, we came here for college, to go to MTSU for the recording industry program.
Nice. And so when you got here, when did you move to Eagle Street?
2010.
2010.
I want to say August of 2010. We moved into the Eagle Street house, 1406 Eagle Street. Mm-hmm. Still there, looks a lot different.
Yeah.
I actually got a look at it maybe a year and a half ago, maybe a little more. I mistakenly had a pretty valuable package sent to that old address, and I didn't figure it out until about a week after the package had been delivered there. And so I drove over there one night and just knocked on the door. Yeah. I was like, hey, did you get a package that you weren't expecting addressed to this person? And they gave me the strangest look. And then I produced my driver's license that had my name and still had the Eagle Street address on it. And I was like, look, I'm not a weirdo. I used to live here. I accidentally got a package. And they did have the package, but it was like a, live, laugh, love on the wall kind of family living there.
Yeah.
They were very surprised to see someone like me. The house, I only got a glimpse through the front door, but it was like looking into a whole different house at that point, They had renovated everything. Which, when they renovated it, actually, they threw all the cabinetry and doors and different, countertops and stuff. They threw it all in a big pile on the front yard. And when they were renovating it, and I drove by and saw it all, so I grabbed one of the doors that had a bunch of graffiti on it, and I grabbed the bathroom medicine cabinet with the folding mirrors and stuff like that. I still have them around the house here, but and they hadn't changed the locks either, so my key still worked, which was funny, but yeah, that's a tangent, I guess.
No. Yeah, I think about the families at the house show venues, post house show venue,
Yeah. If only they knew. If only these walls could talk.
Oh, yeah, there's like a family at Sunnyvale.
Oh, yeah?
Probably, they're, probably watching TV.
Yeah.
With their kids eating popcorn where the floor was covered in dog shit. And
yeah, I think I've heard that there's a family living at the old Hasselhoff too, which hardcore house off, whatever, different eras. But it's funny to think about a family living in that house after everything that went on there. And a funny story about Eagle Street, actually, when we came to Murfreesboro and we were looking for a house, Eagle Street was maybe the third or fourth place that we had set up that day to look at. And my mom came with us. Mm-hmm. And I remember I set up to go look at the Eagle Street house like somebody's going to let us in. And we got there, and the person letting us in was Ross Winchell, Jr., who runs Merch Kitchen now and plays drums in a fucking ton of bands. At that time, he was living like 2 doors down on the other side of the street in the original Eagle Street hardcore house with Mark Adam Van Zant and Crabtree, and I think DT was living there at that time, or had moved out shortly before this time, maybe.
Was DT also a badge collector?
No, DT was in Pizza Damnation. Daniel Trudell was in Pizza Damnation with Renan and a couple other dudes there. And then went on to do Fucked Ethos and Shill, and is now doing the new band with Joey and Whack, Schedule 1. I think their first show is like next month or something.
Oh, shit.
But anyways, Ross was the person that was there to let us into the house, decked out in like full fucking hardcore punk gear, you know, and made my mom clutch her pearls kind of thing. And it turned out that his dad owned the house, Eagle Street house, and the other Eagle Street hardcore house that they were living in down the street. And this was around the time that he started Merch Kitchen, so he just started doing like DIY style screen printing at the other Eagle Street house. But I knew the second that he was the one letting us in, I was like, this is where we're gonna live. Like, we've got a bunch of other punks that we know, literally 2 doors down. Like, I remember when we were standing on the stoop, like, you could hear gunshots in the distance. Yeah. And my mom, being the lady that she is, called the police department and was like, my son is moving to Murfreesboro and is going to be living in this neighborhood. What can you tell me about that neighborhood? And the person at the police station was like, ma'am, you need to find a different neighborhood for your son to live in. And I was like, no, we're going to live here. It's cheap, and I know that we're not going to draw too much attention because there's a lot of other stuff going on in this neighborhood that's way more important than a bunch of punks playing loud music and shit, you know, and we've got friends nearby. And then, we wound up renting that place. It was $600 a month. It was a 3-bedroom house. It was small. It was like maybe 1,000 square foot or something. But I mean, shit, $600. It was fucking dirt cheap, you know. And I think it was the day after we moved in. Mark and them came down from the other house and left a flyer on our doorstep for Trash Mountain. There was a show there. It was like Rip It Up and Guide and another band that escapes me. I remember the flyer distinctly in my mind, though, because it was just a big middle finger like this. That was the whole flyer. It was this with the band names over top of it. I still have it archived in some hard drive buried in my closet, you know, because I never delete anything. But, that's us moving to Eagle Street.
I never got to go to Trash Mountain.
Oh, it was sick.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Tyler Walker was running that place. The house is still there. It's directly, the north side of campus, where it used to be where the recycling was. There was like this big parking lot up there that had these big recycling bins there, and that's where the campus recycling was at this time. And it's like right next door to the pub and gyms over there. It's like literally 1 block away from the pub. But yeah, it was I think it might have been called Trash Mountain just because of that recycling center being right across the street. I don't know. That's just me making assumptions. But anyways, Tyler Walker was living there, had like, I remember there was one room that was like a little bike workshop where they would fix gears and work on bikes, because at the time, like, bike culture in this town was like a big thing, especially like fixed gear riding was like the thing at that time. Everybody was doing it. We had bike night like every week where we'd all gather up on campus and go for big group bike rides. Everybody would gather up. I mean, I can't overstate how many people would come to these things. It'd be a huge gathering. Everybody had bikes. We'd all play foot down, which is, for those that don't know, foot down is a game where you get a bunch of people on bikes riding in a small circle, and you try to get other people to put their foot down. Like, you kick their bike or you nudge in close to them, and you try to destabilize them enough that they put their foot down, and then they have to leave the circle, and everybody keeps going until there's only, dangerous game, but super fun. Also played a lot of bike polo, which is the only sport I've ever cared about. Super fun. But anyways, it was a sick house, lots of space, big house. It came up for rent not that long ago, and I remember some people trying to get it together, but punks and their credit histories. Trying to find enough people that can put a good name on a lease is practically impossible, especially with how like picky landlords are these days about who they rent to. They want like 6 months job history, and it has to be less than half of your income or whatever. I don't know, but it didn't work out. A lot of good shows there. Actually, maybe, definitely a top contender for one of my favorite house shows I've ever seen in Murfreesboro was at Trash Mountain, and it was a full marching band performed there. I remember they showed up in a school bus, and the conductor was like this frazzled old man, and the rest of them were like college-age kids. There were like a lot of them. It was a full marching band. And the way the house was set up is kind of similar to Crossroads here, where you can make a full loop. Like if you go down the hallway and go through the kitchen door, you can come back through the living room and make a full loop. So they had the marching band marching in a circle all the way around the house, playing their set, which is like 30 minutes of marching music, with like the whole brass section, woodwinds, everything. It was, an amazing experience. I so regret that there's no video footage that I'm aware of this happening, because it was like, I've seen, I don't know, probably close to 1,000 house shows at this point or something like that. I've seen an incredible number of house shows, and I've never seen anything close to it. It was wacky. But that's about all I can give about Trash Mountain. I'm completely unclear about who else lived there other than Tyler Walker, because I was pretty new to town at that point, obviously. And it didn't last very long after that. I mean, a year or two after we moved to town, I think, maybe.
I remember hanging out at House of Hop, and like the people from House of Hop would be like, there's a show at Trash Mountain, and leave to go over there.
Yeah, I knew a few of the people that lived there as well. But I only think I ever saw a couple of shows at House of Hoff, though. I remember one distinctly because I played it, and it was Uncle Skunkle and Thunder Brother played. Yeah. And I think that was one of the last ones that they ever did at that house. But
forgot about Thunder Brother.
Oh, yeah.
Thunder Brother was big.
Hell yeah. Thunder Brother was the shit. And, of course, they went on to do Mega Juice. Well, two of them did Mega Juice, and Gabe eventually became a member of Mouth Reader. Kind of like a couple of years into our being a thing. Gabe started playing synth with us for a couple of tours. But Thunder Brother was the shit. They were all, I believe, South Dakota boys that had moved to Murfreesboro. That's the thing, like a lot of the people that you meet in this town are transplants because of the college. I think this town is in a particularly unique circumstance because of the college, because the college puts a pretty major emphasis on the recording industry program there, and it's, as far as I could be totally wrong about this, but I think it's the only public university that offers a full intensive recording industry degree program, at least in this area, you know. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole reason I was able to come here and Jack was able to come here, because there exists this academic common market program where if you live in an abutting state to Tennessee and your state does not offer a degree in the program that you want to do, you can attend a Tennessee university that offers that degree and pay in-state tuition prices. So the whole reason that we were able to afford coming here for college was because we were able to get in-state tuition costs, because Kentucky didn't have the same kind of recording industry program. And I feel that a lot of the students that come here for the program come here with that kind of incentive. So what you wind up getting is an agglomeration of what I would call working class, lower middle class kids that are distinctly interested in music, interested in pursuing the music industry, as ill-fated a choice that might be. And they all wind up here, and they all wind up in class together and meeting each other, and it leads to a particularly fertile ground for DIY music culture to happen. And at that time, the real estate market here was pretty, soft or whatever. It was like borderline affordable, hadn't been as gentrified. There weren't as many large apartment complexes as there are now. A lot more, single family unit homes that were affordable, and you could rent them with your buddies and have shows in them. And that's why I think it popped off the way it did at that time, and why it's so hard to do it now, because the real estate market is insane. Like, even if you could find a house, you couldn't afford it with 5 of your buddies or whatever, Mm-hmm. And even if you could, they'd keep a fucking iron grip on you to keep you from throwing parties there. They'd kick you out immediately if you were throwing shows. So I feel like I went off on like 4 tangents there.
So if you're trying to convince your parents to move here so you can watch shows at the Crossroads.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you find a degree that your state doesn't offer. And you don't tell them up front how much it costs to live here now.
Well, and it also creates a unique circumstance where, like, I feel like, probably a majority of the people that are coming here to pursue the recording industry program are also musicians, and maybe they're not like trying to be a professional musician, but they're at least fucking around with music. They're making like some bedroom project or something, or like they play guitar at very least, And so when you're in school, you find yourself, you're in a room full of people that have distinct and focused interest in music in some capacity. A lot of them are musicians. You're in a building with hundreds of people just like that, the recording industry building, hundreds of people in there at any given moment, all interested in discussing and pursuing and studying music. A lot of them making music leads to a very unique situation and a very fertile ground for forming bands and making, music, and especially when you're dealing with young people like that, a lot of times kind of learning and making at the same time, like maybe you just picked up the instrument and you're kind of working out your chops, and you're doing that with other people and kind of bouncing off each other, and it leads to, in the best cases, it leads to some pretty unique musical creation, I think. That's just been my theory, Nice. But
so Boro Fondo is a nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
I just happen to think so. If I got done community service,
we don't have like a 501c3 or
so
sorry,
don't try it.
Down.
Don't try.
We are an informal nonprofit, I guess you could say. We certainly do not pay ourselves anything for doing it.
Yeah.
And the only money that's made is from the merch sales, and that goes to, we do a lot of charitable donations off it. We do a lot of fundraiser shows. Of course, we use the money to make the merch the next year, Yeah. But yeah, nobody, any leftover money is sitting in an account under the Boro Fondo name. And we have unfortunately had two different circumstances where people that were involved with the organization, like stole money out of the account. One of them a particularly large sum, but we worked it out and learned from those mistakes. And I think the people that are in charge of handling that now are much more competent and trustworthy, definitely, to be handling that stuff. But yeah, it is a nonprofit, definitely, I would say. We looked into doing the official 501c3, but that's like a pretty involved and complicated process that it's hard to justify when you're just doing things at this small level. It's hard to justify that level of incorporation and that level of complexity.
Yeah. So one thing I was going to ask was Uncle Skunkle did a little name change there for a minute. What was it in the Scarecrow family?
Uncle Skunkle and the Scarecrow Family Band was the original name. I wanted to change it to These Heathens because I felt like, at the time, we sent our music to a lot of the punk zines that were doing reviews. We had like Max Rock and Roll and Razor Cake and a bunch of different smaller ones, and every single review commented about how stupid our name was and how it did not reflect our music, which everyone admittedly said was pretty good. And it got to the point where I started thinking about it a lot, and as I got older, I was like, you know what? I think it really is a stupid name. And maybe it is not representing what we're bringing to the table, which was like a pretty heavily punk-influenced rock and roll wild set where we would regularly hurt ourselves and our equipment. And people did not expect that from the name, and I felt like, and it was also a mouthful. But I don't know, it didn't work out very well. Everyone still called us Uncle Skunkle, everyone still to this day calls us that. So whatever, it is what it is at this point.
Do you wear the sport jackets in the summer?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was part of the artistic angle of the project, was that we really did smell really bad. And we would go to Goodwill and buy suits that could best be described as like sketchy used car salesman suits, like mismatched, bright colors, crazy looking suits from Goodwill, never the right size, always baggy or tight, all the pieces mismatched. And we would wear them, sweat in an insane amount, and then as soon as we were done, while they were still soaking wet with sweat, we would stuff all of them into a black garbage bag and tie it up and leave it until the next show. And then literally mold would grow on them, and it would you would open the bag and the smell would punch you in the face, and we would hold our nose and put them back on and all right, another show. And we did it like that for years and did not wash them ever. So it was like we walked in the room, you could see people smell it, which with a name like that, I guess kind of works, but
that reminds me of
hilarious.
Jail, kind of.
Yeah.
Or getting out of jail. Because before you go to jail, you give them all your clothes.
Right.
And then you don't have a cigarette forever. And then when you get out, you open up your sweaty cigarette clothes.
Yeah, you're like, man.
Yeah, and I smell it.
This is what I smell like? Yeah, it's kind of like that, yeah. There were definitely moments where I was getting ready to go on and I was putting the suit on and I was like, damn, this is really what I'm about to put this on, really? Like, and yes, I did. We all did.
So, when we first met, we talked about pizza. Did you work any pizza here?
Yep, sure did. Worked at Sal's Pizza on Church Street. It's not there anymore. Now it's like I think it's some kind of Mexican restaurant or something now. But anyways, right next to the Regal Inn, directly across the street from the Knights Inn, across the interstate from the Safari Inn, all the most reputable motels in town with the best power nap rates you could want. And our delivery, I was a delivery driver, our delivery orders were colorful characters, to say the least. Because also, we were located right in the nexus of all the like 1-star motels in Murfreesboro. But also right next to that is Indian Hills, which is like the richest neighborhood in Murfreesboro. Yeah. So I would take a pizza to like this mansion and deliver it in Indian Hills and get a shitty tip, and then I would take a pizza to the fucking crackhead at the Knights Inn across the street and get a great tip. Yeah. Like, it was very strange. But yeah, did work there for over 2 years. I'm not sure exactly how long. I worked 5 days a week on the buffet shift. So I'd come in at 10 and leave about 2 or 3 every day, run the buffet. It's where I met Tony DeFeo, because Tony and his wife would come in and eat the Sal's Pizza buffet like at least once a week, you know.
Yeah, I bet Tony put it away too.
Oh yeah, I mean it was good pizza. It was like real good, you know, New York style pizza or whatever. Good pasta and stuff too. Everybody that ran the place was Uzbeki. It was like an or I guess it was a Sicilian family that started the company, and then maybe they had married into an Uzbeki family too. But I remember a lot of the people that worked there were Uzbek, and they would regularly bring people over from Uzbekistan and start them working there. And a lot of them wouldn't even know English. You know, we would just communicate kind of with body language and stuff. But they were always super nice, and they were making like traditional Uzbek food dishes a lot in the back, which were delicious. And they also had these cigarettes from Uzbekistan that were like $1 a pack, and they were like super thin. They were like the Virginia Super Slims, you know. And they had a perforated filter, so you could rip the filter off if you wanted to have an unfiltered smoke. And they were harsh as fuck. Like probably 2 or 3 times the tar of a normal cigarette or whatever, you know.
I had a friend in high school smoking something similar like that, fishing, smoked the whole pack, and throwing up over the boat.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, then before I moved here, I worked at Snappy Tomato in Mayfield, and I was a delivery driver there too. So when I moved down here, it just made sense to keep working in pizza. It was fun. I mean, over the years I was there, I got like everyone that lived at Eagle Street worked there at some point. Like Jack worked there, Caitlin worked there, Andy worked there, Crabtree worked there, Nelson Lumpkin worked there, if you remember Nelson. Like a whole bunch of people from the music scene came through that place while I was working there. But it was funny if there was like a big good show happening and we all tried to mark off of work, and they were like, who the fuck is gonna run this place?
The Murfreesboro music scene has its certain jobs that, just like, you know, stuff talked before, is like when one band moves somewhere, the rest of them go somewhere, like Molotov, Spring Hill, or Muddy Roots. Same thing with jobs. It's like SSC. SSC,
definitely. So many people that worked that job. Yeah. I remember Tugboat worked that job.
I worked that job 3 times.
Yep.
Sir Pizza. I worked there.
Henry Daggs is still at Sir Pizza.
Learned life lessons from Henry, you know? They're all circles.
Yep. Yeah, when we first moved here, the house that we played at the most probably was House Pride, which Henry Daggs was running it at the time. Him and Nick Naote, I think, was the other one that was running that place. Nick was doing Zombie Bazooka Patrol, and then later doing Children of Spy. And Henry, of course, was just doing Henry Daggs. But it's where we met a lot of the first group of people that we were hanging out with a lot there. I remember seeing the Utterly Impossibles there. I think that's when I met Helvig. Did Dillinger play in that band too?
Yeah. And Jay filled in. We talked about it on the podcast before. I was like writing a blurb the other day, and like when I think about like the bands I know Helvig was in, Utterly Impossibles is the hardest name wise for me. Yeah. To remember.
That was the first one. I every time I see him, I bug him about doing a reunion show. It's never gonna happen, you know.
Yeah. So, the water slide. I want to talk about that again because I might want to. Now that we're on video, I might try to find the original video.
Oh, I can find it.
Yeah.
I've found it so many times on YouTube, but the water slide. Such an incredible thing. Yeah, I remember my memory of the water slide is Luke rolling me out of bed at Eagle Street at like 8 in the morning one morning, and he just had a wild hair up his ass. He was like, "We're gonna fucking build a water slide off the top of Avalon." And I said, "That's the craziest thing I've ever heard." You know, what are you talking about? And he's like, "Yep, we're going to fucking Home Depot right now. We're gonna get this stuff." And I said, "Well, let me put my shoes on." And we did. We went to Home Depot and threw in on building materials, and went over to Avalon, started building, and then other people kept showing up when they heard what we were doing, and I think some of the other people from Eagle Street came out and then started pitching in. And I remember I had to, of course, I was still working at Sal's Pizza at that time, I think, and I had to go to work like the next couple of days while they were working on it. And I just remember it being finished, and I remember seeing the first couple of videos of people going off of it, which I think the video that is online is Austin Kemple going off of it. Oh yeah, and I remember we had a skateboard ramp at Eagle Street that we had gotten off of Craigslist or some shit, and we were like, let's go grab the ramp at Eagle Street, and we put the ramp at the end of the water slide so that you come off of 3 stories and then you just shoot off the ramp at the end. And I remember who was it? I think it was Dylan went off it and landed hard and slipped a disc in his spine from landing bad off of it, and like luckily they had some kind of military health insurance or something covering them, because they had to go to the fucking doctor for it. It was bad. And so then we were like, all right, well, let's put a mattress at the bottom. You know?
Safety.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was a 2-story house.
Well, yeah, it was a 2-story house and then a basement, which is where the shows were, and there was, I think, Lancel's bedroom was in the basement too. But so in the backyard, it was effectively 3 stories, because at the backyard, the basement was the ground level, and then you had 2 stories of house on top of that, and we built it from the crest of the roof, so the tallest point.
I did, didn't it?
So it was effectively 3 stories. Yeah.
I remember hanging out with Mark and Crafty and stuff at the top. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had the 2 toilets.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember the bathroom at Avalon had, I guess it used to be, I don't know, maybe a frat house or something. I don't know.
Maybe
there used to be stalls, I assume.
Yeah.
You know, and there were 2 toilets side by side, but the stalls weren't there anymore, so it was just 2 toilets, and you could hold hands with your buddy while you're using the bathroom, you know?
Nice. So did the water slide go over went off the roof, 2 stories?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it started at the roof. It was basically on 2x4 stilts all the way to the top of the first story, which was the edge of the roof, you know, and then it went up the roof of the first story to the second story top, you know.
Ramp, fire pit.
Yeah.
Then you put did you put the mattress over the fire pit?
Basically, yeah, down in that bottom area. But yeah, and it was just like 2x4 sides. It was maybe 2 foot wide or something, you know. And then we put pool noodles over the edge as bumpers, you know. I think we covered it in like the clear plastic, like painter's drop cloth stuff or whatever, like clear plastic sheeting. Put that on it to make it extra slick, you know. Because you gathered some fucking speed coming down that.
I bet. Team tennis, you know. Yeah.
But it only lasted, I mean, from the time it was built and they sent the first person off it, I think it was like 3 days before the city made them tear it down.
Yeah. Yeah. And it got put on like, not Tosh Pono?
No, I think it was on Ridiculousness.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a long time ago, so it's hard to remember, but I think it was on Ridiculousness.
Yeah. Well, I like Rob more than I like Daniel Tosh.
Definitely. I can't stand Daniel Tosh.
Can't stand Daniel Tosh.
I would have been disappointed if it was on Tosh Pono, honestly. If somebody knows, tell me.
Yeah. Yeah. If Tosh Pono is watching this.
Yeah, boo.
Yeah. So, here, some of the parking and stuff around here and stuff you guys have gotten, like, you know, whether it be used condoms over at the school or this guy at Spooky's.
Yeah, Spooky's guy does not like us.
Yeah.
Spooky's guy has a problem with us or did. I haven't talked to him in years, so I don't know, but yeah, he was having a problem with people parking in the parking lot over there, even though they close at 8 p.m., which is like before, you know, most of the shows here ever even start. So he's already closing by the time people are parking over there. So I'm not sure why he was so up in arms about it, but I guess they were probably leaving trash in the parking lot over there. And there were times where we'd go over there and pick up after the show and stuff, and it wasn't ever that bad, I don't think, but I don't know. And then people started parking at the gas station, and that got to be too much. They started parking at the school. The school was good for a while because that's a huge parking lot right there. Obviously, they don't use it at night, and then people were leaving beer bottles and condoms and whatever over there, which, like, we distribute condoms for free, you know, because I feel like, you know, that's a pretty important, you know, public safety thing to do, but you can't always trust the young ones with condoms, you know. They just be doing crazy shit and leaving them all over the place and whatever. But so we got in trouble on that front, and now we have to try to park everybody here at the house.
Which you did like a thing where you got the community together and you guys put gravel out.
Yeah, it's several tons of gravel out there that we spread out, which a lot of it has eroded away at this point. But we need another round of gravel on. So we've got a pretty big mud pit out there at one part. But yeah, we've had to roll with that punch for sure a couple of times.
Yeah. So, okay. Let's see here. Can you tell me about Skatopia? You were talking about Skatopia earlier.
Yeah, definitely. Wrecked played at Skatopia a couple of years ago. I think maybe 2 years ago. And it was cool. It's in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, if I remember correctly. And, I mean, anybody that's played the Tony Hawk games has seen Skatopia. It's one of the levels in the Tony Hawk games. They took some creative liberties with it in the game, but
Bigfoot.
But like certain parts of it are very accurate, and certain parts are for the game or whatever. But it's still an incredible place to go. And the guy that runs the place, Bruce, an old pro skater, and unfortunately, he had an accident where he was at a tire shop, and they had a tire up on a machine that exploded and like hit him in the head and caused a traumatic brain injury. And he's been struggling with that for a long time now. But he's still, with the help of his son, he's still able to do Skatopia. But I mean, like, you just walk around, there's like the remnants of all the burnt out cars from the famous videos of Skatopia where they set cars on fire and shit. All that's just sitting out in the middle of the tall grass out there, from when they did it. There's like an old limousine out there that's like a pink limousine. I think it had like a Playboy bunny decal on the windows. Who knows where that came from? One of the barns that has like a giant kidney bowl from the second story. The bottom floor is like an old saloon style bar with a stripper pole stage and stuff. Super cool. But it's just a wild place. I mean, like, and then Bruce also runs like basically a museum of skateboarding there, where he has like hundreds and hundreds of skateboards. One room has like the oldest skateboards that were ever produced, and it kind of traces the evolution of skating through the years. But super cool, super nice dude, running a crazy fucking place out in hillbilly nowhere, But and there's like a bunch of crazy kids that just hang out there all the time, like basically like crash there on couches and shit. And, I don't know. It's kind of place that you have to go and experience, I guess. Yeah. It's wild. Mm-hmm. But kind of like the anarchist utopia that a lot of people talk about. That's kind of what he's doing out there. Nice. But. Mm-hmm. And that's about all I can offer on that, I guess. It was a fun time.
So you brought up Brecht. So where did Brecht and Toxic Culture, let's say Toxic Culture too, where do those two start? That would be following Uncle Skunkle, right?
Yeah. Well, following Uncle Skunkle would have been, right after Uncle Skunkle would have been Mouth Reader,
right?
And Pig Party. Mm-hmm. And then Pig Party turned into Badge Collector. And then Badge Collector turned into Toxic Culture. And Toxic Culture started, I was doing Mouth Reader and living with Kyle and Tazel, and I had a bunch of riffs that originally I had kind of come up with for Badge Collector, because I wrote a lot of the riffs in Badge Collector, even though I was playing drums. And I knew I still wanted to do a hardcore punk project, so I just made a demo of just me playing everything. I played like the drums and the bass and the guitar, and I demoed out 6 or 7 songs. And I started talking to some different people about playing in it. And then I had Evan Rainey in mind to do vocals for it, and I had Jody Recht on to do bass for it, and we had Carson doing drums from Sheepshifter, and it's gone on to do much more prestigious projects. But Carson, I think, was always the drummer in mind, and came over and did those first practices with us. And so then around the same time, I did a New Year's cover band show with Whack and Maddie Recht, and then we had Jack Brunson do bass for that. And it was like a New Year's party at Chris Warwick's house, and we just learned a bunch of like cool punk songs and played a cover set, and kind of did like whoever wants to do vocals can do vocals kind of thing, put a mic out there for people. And after we did that, Whack and Maddie really wanted to do a real like an original punk band spin-off of that, and I was like, I'm super down. And they wanted to do like a more street punk thing. And I was like, okay, Jack was like pretty busy. He's obviously in a bunch of bands, and he's like never been super into street punk and stuff. And so I was like, okay, well, I know Jody is super into street punk and pogo and shit, and I know Jack is more into hardcore. And so I said, all right, Jack, you're going to come over here and play bass for Toxic Culture. And Jody, you're going to come over here and play bass for Wrecked instead of Toxic Culture, because this is more your style anyway. And that's kind of how both bands spawned off of that.
Oh, a lot of wild times before I quit drinking.
Yeah, definitely.
Now we're drinking straight edge sidewalk. Yeah.
And then we did a lot of, there was like an era of Toxic Culture that was me and Jack and Carson, and we did that for a long time. And we never recorded that era of Toxic Culture. I don't know, like I think we attempted it once or twice and it just never worked out or happened. And then Carson obviously got busy with a bunch of other stuff, playing in other projects, and didn't really feel like they had the time to do it anymore. And it was a long drive for them to come practice in Murfreesboro anyway, because they were living in Nashville. And so they didn't want to really do Toxic Culture anymore. And at the same time, Knuckle Dragger had broken up, and I knew, or Jack and I both knew, Gray and Jack Anderson from Knuckle Dragger, and we just kind of had, we were like, hey, we just lost a drummer, your band broke up, let's, put them together and make a band out of the ashes of two bands, and that's how the current Toxic Culture lineup came about. Yeah, I need one of those. I need one of those Charlie line diagrams where we're connecting all the threads together.
Yeah.
We could do that. It would be an expansive history of all the different bands people have been involved in.
We should do that. I think that'd be pretty cool. So, when did you come here?
Crossroads?
Yeah.
2019. I want to say September of 2019 was when I moved in here. That sounds right. Because I was the only person left at Eagle Street, and they had raised the rent on me several times, and it was getting to be a lot to pay on my own. And so somebody was moving out here at Crossroads. Sue was running it at the time, and I was pretty good friends with Sue. And I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about moving out of Eagle Street and trying to find something cheaper. And Sue mentioned that there was going to be a room opening up here. I was like, sick, that sounds perfect. I was already booking shows here at that time anyway. I was like, all right, so I moved in over here. And then of course COVID happened right after that. This was September 2019. Lockdown was February, March of 2020. So, and eventually Sue decided that they wanted to kind of step away from the whole thing and wanted somebody to take over Crossroads, and that was me. And I took over the lease, I want to say in 21 or 20. I think it was 21. It might have been 22. Hard to remember. But been the leaseholder ever since.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about how Crossroads works as a community. It's kind of
well, it works however people want it to, I guess. I kind of leave it an open book for people to do whatever. I pretty much allow anybody that wants to book something here, they just hit me up and I let them do their thing, you know. And of course I book some of the shows myself. I did a lot more myself back when I first took over, but then some of the younger kids started wanting to book more shows, and I was happy to have it because I'm stretched thin anyway, you know. So I'm like, if y'all want to book a lot of the shows around here, perfect, please do. But I try to run it kind of as a nonprofit type of thing too. Like, I never take any like personal payment from any of the shows. Nobody does. When people will do a show and it's successful, you know, if they want to kick some to the house, I'm appreciative for it. Any money that they kick back to the house. Like, we had one here the other night, and they kicked back like $35 or something to the house. And that goes to like the repairs for one thing, because obviously, like, at least a mic cable gets destroyed at every single show. And when you're doing like a bunch of shows, you're going through mic cables every week, you're going through microphones every other week, you know. Yeah. The drums are getting destroyed, things are getting broken, the toilet's getting broken, whatever. I've spent a lot of money just repairing the house, and that usually is mostly covered by people kicking back a little bit from shows here and there, or it'll go to, you know, buying a bunch of toilet paper and hand soap and whatever, or like, it's gone to getting harm reduction materials before. We've done fundraiser shows for that kind of stuff. The fundraiser shows for all kinds of nonprofits that are involved in LGBTQ causes, pretty much anything, you know. And then a lot of the shows obviously are like break-even shows anyway, because I always try to make sure that the touring band gets like at least $100, you know, like right off the bat, because that's going to cover gas at best, you know, and that's the least you can do for them. And like, I tour a lot, so I know what it's like, and I know what DIY level touring bands are expecting usually, and I know what helps them get through and consider it a successful show is at least getting a couple $100, you know. So usually when I'm booking a show, I try to earmark that, like, okay, the touring band gets like at least the first $100 off of whatever people donate at the door, you know. And then everything after that, I'll split it up. I'll still give a majority of it to the touring band. I might like keep like $20 back to help cover costs here, but yeah.
It gets pretty wild. There's feet mark all over the ceiling.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's like splatters of fake blood from a band that like they had like super soakers full of fake blood and shit. Sprayed it all over the place. I remember there was one kid that baptized himself in the toilet bowl, like with the toilet, like he knelt in front of the toilet and like baptized himself in the toilet. That was hilarious. But yeah.
I did something similar in the pump toilet.
Hell yeah. Nice. Yeah, it's funny. I get recognized pretty regularly when I'm traveling for running this place. Like we went to Lexi and I went to South by Southwest 2 years ago, and I ran into like a handful of people at South by Southwest that were like, "Hey, I recognize you. Do you run Crossroads in Tennessee?" And I was like, "Yep, that's me." Or we were at Mardi Gras just last month. We were at Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and we're hanging out on the balcony of a bar on Bourbon Street, and this like bunch of dudes that are rip-roaring drunk come up and stand next to us on the balcony, and one of them turns to me and says, "Hey, I feel like I recognize you. Do you live in Tennessee?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Do you run this like house that does shows?" Like, "Yeah, Crossroads." They're like, "Yeah, I've been there like a dozen times." I'm like, wow, it's like small world moments like that all the time. But I don't know. There's a ton of bands that have told me when they come through here that we have like a unique scene and a unique situation that they don't see hardly anywhere else that they go. And like some of them are bands that are touring literally all over the country, like pretty heavily, and they're like, yeah, we don't see this anywhere else, if ever, you know. So that's nice. That feels good. Yeah.
I feel like the Crossroads bathrooms had more pictures taken than any other house show venue.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody, I feel like everybody that's ever come to a fucking show here has a picture in the bathroom, which that was like, I love it. That was a project that I spent like ungodly hours putting together the flyers in the bathroom, and I printed them. I found them, cleaned them up in Photoshop, printed them all off, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of flyers, one by one. Went in there, color coordinated it so they're all in a specific arrangement of colors, and pasted them all to the wall. Took fucking forever, but yeah, it's funny. People often comment about how funny it is that they'll be like on a dating app and they'll be scrolling through and they'll just see like person after person that their profile picture is like in the Crossroads bathroom. Like that's how you know that they're like hanging out in the scene around here. You know?
That's how you know they were cool.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have the Duckman comics.
The Daniel Johnston one, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember when I took it down, I saved those, and I believe I gave them to Jess.
Yeah, just a big fan.
Yeah. But I made sure to preserve them when I took them down because I knew what that was, and it was a cool comic, you know.
I didn't know that that's what it was.
There used to be a bunch of manga, and I think at a certain point there was a lot of hentai in the bathroom as well, and the hentai had to be removed because people don't know how to behave.
If I could whistle. And you've gone through a couple of toilet seats in there.
Oh yeah, I've bought at least 4 toilet seats, and they never make it more than a month or 2 before they're broken. And then it's just a game of how long can I limp this toilet seat along before it's unusable, you know? Yeah. And I bought some pretty nice ones. Like, I got the clear acrylic with the seashells and stuff embedded in it. That was cool as hell, and people broke the hell out of it. But, I mean, what can you do?
So, I'd like to know some of the Boro Fondo fundraising things that have happened over here, like the bicycle jousting.
Oh, yeah.
Goth prom.
Yeah, what are some of your favorites? There was the Box Wars one. Yeah, that was a while ago. I think that was probably 2018 or 2019 was that era, which I think the Goth Prom and the Box Wars might have been the same year or at least a year apart, maybe. Can't quite remember. There's still a few remnants from that around the house. But yeah, that was when Sue was still running the place. And, I mean, obviously I came to shows here and stuff, but I wasn't super involved in the planning and execution of those events, you know. I was a part of Boro Fondo at that point, I think, because I think that was when Quentin still had a pretty big hand in running things, and we would do meetings at the kitchen. But yeah, that was... I wasn't super involved in the planning of those events here, so I can't offer too much insight on that.
I know some of the meetings were over there at Sunnyvale, which we talked last time about how I woke up to my landlord angry because she had drone photos.
Yeah, I would pay a large sum of money to get those drone photos.
Yeah, they're like, who threw the party outside? I had a bad situation drinking CBD lemonade.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh man, at the field over by
Pete's Field.
Yeah, Pete's Field.
Yeah, me and Jack drank that together, and
whew. Yeah, you went down hard. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, and I woke up eventually from that to the landlord. And the landlord was just kind of like, that kind of got me out of that.
Yeah, I had a medical crisis.
Yeah, like, well, it couldn't have been you. You know, life kind of gave me a bone, I think.
Yeah, it could have been worse, I feel like.
Yeah, I could have woke up and been like, and evicted.
Yeah, that would have been the cherry on top of that whole situation, for sure. No, yeah, one thing, that's just like totally illustrative of the situation that we're in now is how Boro Fondo has evolved over the years, because in the beginning, it was like heavily house shows. It was like there were a few bar shows at the end of the night, but during the day, it was pretty much all houses. And over the years, it's slowly been harder and harder and harder to find houses that are even capable of hosting a show, even if it's just the Boro Fondo show once a year, you know. And we're kind of struggling to find places that still are DIY like that, you know. And we've had to do more bar shows and more places of business because it's getting to be pretty much impossible to have a show house anymore, you know. I mean, just by the way things are, that the real estate market being what it is and the properties that are available being heavily scrutinized, you know, is the best way I think I can put it. But, and anything that would be suitable to have shows in and have like a landlord that didn't care enough to let it happen, you know, has been torn down, and a strip mall stands in its place at this point, you know. That's pretty much how the whole city is at this point, you know. And you have to move further out into the county to find, even to just rent a house, you know, that has any amount of space. You know.
They didn't even try to renovate House Pride.
No, it's a fucking, what is it? It's like a Panda Express now.
Yeah.
If you look, I went and looked because I wanted to know what lot it was on, and I Googled old show flyers from House Pride, and I typed in the address that was on the flyers, and it is the current address of Panda Express. So, and it's funny, their neighbor is still there. Like, there was a brick house that was a neighbor to House Pride, and I guess they just held out. Like, they didn't sell, you know, which, like, I salute you, you know, for not giving in to commercial pressures. But the whole situation in this area, in particular the Middle Tennessee area, as far as real estate and housing goes, is wildly different than it was in, you know, 2010 to 2015 era, you know. I don't know if it could ever get back to there. I don't know, you know. I think obviously we're in like a real estate bubble, and maybe it's getting to the bursting point. Only time will tell. But I don't know. Like, I inquired about buying this place, and they wanted $500,000 for it. They wanted $500K for this property. And if you look around, it's not because of the house. It's because of the commercial potential of the land that it sits on. And that's, you know, we are all in Middle Tennessee at the whims of real estate development and investment at this time, you know. And any kind of marginal cultural importance and cultural community subcultures have been getting suppressed because of that. And I don't even know if you can, it's not even like it's like an intentional suppression. It's just like a happy accident of the ballooning real estate values, is that they have a good mechanism for suppressing subcultural outlets, I guess you could say. Which is what they want, you know. Obviously, like, if you've ever seen Murfreesboro in the news, it's because our local politicians and like the political environment here is just horrible. You know, even before I moved here, when I was living in Kentucky, I remember Murfreesboro was on the news because they were protesting the building of a mosque here on national news. They were doing some real uproar about having a mosque in Murfreesboro, you know, and it's still, I mean, like did you listen to that, the Kids of Rutherford County, that podcast? Okay, so it was, the people that made Serial, in collaboration, I believe, with the New York Times, did a whole podcast series called The Kids of Rutherford County about the police here in Rutherford County arresting very small school children and escorting them out of school for it was like some kind of young kids fighting on the playground video that got shared around on social media or something, and they were going in and putting children in cuffs for it, and there's this whole scandal around it, which you know, police scandal in Murfreesboro is nothing new. I mean,
I know about the judge. I didn't see the.
Yeah, you should listen to the podcast. I mean, it's obviously super professionally put together, good podcast. Everybody watching, get on Spotify. Kids of Rutherford County, great podcast. But then obviously there was the whole Tom Arnold scandal, where he was the sheriff, I believe, and he got busted because
Robert Arnold.
Yeah, that was it. Sorry, Robert Arnold. But anyways, it was what was it? It was his family was running
e-cigs or
something?
It was his family owned the company that had an exclusive contract with the commissary of the jail, so they were making money being the exclusive provider of all kinds of goods that you could get in the jail, and they were had an e-cig scandal, and it was so much stuff. He wound up getting arrested, didn't he? Yeah. And and that's when Sheriff Fitzhugh steps back in, because he was the sheriff before Arnold, and then after the Arnold scandal, he stepped back in, and I believe is still sheriff now, if I'm not mistaken, unless he was very recently replaced.
Yeah, he still is.
Yeah? And I mean, he's getting pretty up there in age. I mean, he's a pretty old man.
And then when we met, other than just going to shows, talking about pizza, we were organizing a protest.
Oh, yeah.
At me and Dick's house.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that time period a little bit?
Let's see, what year would that even have been?
It's with Murfreesboro Loves.
Yeah, and so that was 2016, maybe? I don't even know. My concept of time all blurs together. Mm-hmm. But I remember, was that the one where they boarded up the square and all that? Was it that protest? Yeah. Where yeah. And I remember, I believe actually my picture was in the newspaper after that protest. It was a picture of me in my leather jacket holding a big sign that said, white supremacy is an inferiority complex. I still have a clipping from
Dick
that. Dick
was in there too at the Star David drawing.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was the day of the Shelbyville incident, which I think my understanding of the situation was they got their shit handed to them in Shelbyville, and so they did not come to Murfreesboro, or at least very few of them showed up in Murfreesboro, and it was kind of a bust. But the counter-protest showed up in mass, for sure.
Which the media didn't really quite... It focused on Murfreesboro Love.
Yeah.
That was people who organized outside of the protest.
Right.
They didn't actually put a lens on, the revolution will not be televised.
Oh, yeah, well, they would never put a lens on that. They don't want to,
But I will.
They don't want to publicize that side of Murfreesboro culture, It's always been the way here,
All right, so we're getting close to the end on this. You want to give any last thoughts?
No, but I feel like, the same as I did last time. I feel like there's so much stuff that we didn't even talk about, So we'll have to do another sometime.
We'll have to do another.
Absolutely. I guess I could plug a few things
that
I've been doing. Toxic Culture full-length record is pretty much done. It's in I think it's in mastering. Maybe it's still being mixed at this point, but I think we're on to mastering and should be out, probably this summer. New Black Market record, Black Market Kidney Surgeon record, also in process, should be out soon. New Torsion album, we are in the writing process, haven't started recording yet, but hopefully we'll have that full length written and in the studio before the end of the year. Joined Bleached Out. Check out Bleached Out. I'm playing guitar for Bleached Out now. Gonna be joining Sex Tape Massacre in August. I'll be playing guitar for them. Also have been making VHS tapes a lot. I've been doing FF video. I set up a table at the Punk Rock Flea Market last weekend? I don't know. Recently. And been selling VHS tapes, been doing live record cutting. I'm doing the Memphis Punk Rock Flea Market next month, but I'm going to be doing a bunch of those kind of punk rock flea market and that kind of events. And I'm going to be doing live record cutting. So you can literally show up and you can come up with a thumb drive if you want to, or I have mics and a guitar there. You can literally just sing a song into the mics and I can put it on a record right there on the spot. I've also been coming with my computer, so if you have a song on YouTube, I can literally rip it right off of YouTube and put it on a record. I've been trying to get into more of that. But yeah, that's what I've been doing lately. And Runt has been doing some cool stuff. We're playing Southwest Crust Fest in New Mexico later this year, and then we're playing this fest in Pittsburgh, I think it is, on my birthday in September with AFI and Blink-182 and Jawbreaker. Yeah, and it's gonna Drug Church and Kuso are also playing that fest. Pretty excited about that. But so yeah, if you're gonna be going to big festivals this year, come see us in Pittsburgh in September. And Runt is also playing. Well, I guess this won't be out for a while, so it doesn't matter. We're playing in Nashville on Sunday, but it'll already have happened by the time people see this. So.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for being on here.
Of course.
Again. We'll do it again.
Cheers.
Cheers.